In the June update, we're looking at a potential of 111 weapons coming back in the form of a loot refresh of all raids and dungeons. While I don't know if the 111 number is accurate, what I can say is that there's definitely weapons that I'm very excited to see return in the more modern era of Destiny. So today's video is going to be me going through weapons that I'm very looking forward to, things I'm hoping that can change, and some other wishlist items I have for the upcoming June update. Before we get into it, I do want to address some feedback I've received on my previous videos. It's become very apparent to me that when I'm speaking about my opinions, it comes from a place that not a lot of players are also coming from. It's very clear that my opinions are not one that the casual raiding audience has. And what I mean by the casual raiding audience is those who just like to raid because raiding is fun for them. Might raid once a week and they'll do any raid because they just like playing them casually. That is what I mean by the casual raider. Me personally, I was really hoping the June update would expand on the feat system that we got in the Edge of Fates, so we can have the option of getting contest mode at any time of the year. That is more so what I was asking for in my previous video. While I did also associate loot to the tier system, that is just because that is what I'm used to in terms of how to get tier 5s from raids and dungeons. With that being said, I appreciate you guys all giving your opinion, and I do believe it is actually better for the game to have a better catering to the average player, the more casual raider, than someone like me. I still wanted to stress my disappointments, even if I'm in the minority, on not having the option of being able to engage in a feat-like system, regardless if it gave me more loot, the same loot, anything at all. Because what I was really more so asking was for the ability to have cutthroat on every raid in the updates that is updating every raid. With that out of the way, let's get into some weapons that I'm really looking forward to. Starting off with one that I don't know if it's really going to happen is going to be Pit of Heresy in its loophole. Now, the unique thing about Pit of Heresy is that it's one of the first dungeons that came out. If you guys aren't aware, originally, the first few dungeons didn't actually have any unique rewards. It wasn't until Duality until we got dungeon exclusive weapons. And current Pit of Heresy drops weapons like One Small Step, Tranquility, Arc Logic, Ringbreaker, Love and Death, Night Terror, Loud Lullaby, and other moon weapons. And the reason why I'm excited about these weapons is if they do get a loot refresh, that also means they'll get an origin trait, which is something that they don't have yet. And on top of that, One Small Step is a kinetic rapid-fire shotgun, and if we get lucky, it could be the perfect paradox replacement or something equivalent to it in some form or fashion. I'm hoping to see this shotgun with Arc Logic, Love and Death, Loud Lullaby, Tranquility, and every waking moment to get updated if we only had to choose 6 weapons from the pool, as these are some of my favorite looking weapons in the game, and if they do get a pretty cool origin trait, that's also a bonus. Up next is the Deep Stone Crypt weapons. I hope Heritage gets something nasty so it can be paired with Unvoiced Sunder Doctrine shotgun. If I could double slug those two shotguns, I think it would be really cool, especially as a tractor cannon user. It'd be very nice if I could use these 3 and double slug like Days of the Past. I would really love to see something like redirection on this shotgun. I think it's the only weapon from Deep Stone that hasn't ever had it on it before, and if it could get it, that'd be really nice. And that with something like Elemental Honing or Bait and Switch would also be huge as well. Or you could just get a really super powerful shots with something like redirection and recombination. I think that'd be really funny. Something that I do hope happens is Ice Luna gets made into a lightweight hand cannon. I know from the PvP crowd that there's an issue with not being able to acquire a Godroll Rose, and Ice Luna is already a very popular hand cannon. I don't know how making a lightweight would affect it, but I do think it's a good contender as a hand cannon to be turned into a lightweight, alongside Waking Vigil if Waking Vigil drops from Shattered Throne like it currently does. The entirety of the Grasp of Avarice weapons, I think, really belongs to the PvP crowd, maybe minus the Hero of Ages. So I hope all the weapons from this dungeon are for the PvP crowd. Whether the armor is or not, I can't say. I definitely know the PvP audience loves the weapons from this dungeon. Thousand Yard Stare, Matador, and Ice Luna are all iconic Destiny 1 weapons. and it would be nice if they kept it the same in Destiny 2. I will say, Hero of Ages, I do hope that they make some sort of arc sword perk that builds up bolt charge on hits, and then you can release that on heavy attacks. Kind of sort of how the lightsaber currently functions if you're using an arc subclass. I think it'd be nice if other weapons got similar functionality, so it wasn't completely limited to one weapon, just something to consider. Deliverance, Cataclysmic, and Submission from Vowed Disciple are some of my favorite weapons from that era, and I hope that they get something really nice. Additionally to that, I do hope the Origin trait kind of gets a buff. Getting 100% of your magazine just to restore 50% of your HP is a big ask for some of these weapons. I think it would be nice that if you were under 50% of your HP, if you landed 100% of your mag, you get 100 HP. And if you're at full health and you land 100% of your mag, start getting a Void Overshield. That would also play a little bit into the raid's exotic weapon. Speaking of which, I think should get a catalyst. In fact, all the raid weapons that don't have a catalyst should get one at this point. I'll probably have my fan-made ideas at the later end of this video, but keep that in the back of your mind. In terms of Cataclysmic, I hope it gets something like Controlled Burst on it, to sort of set it apart from other linear fusion rifles, even though the next weapon I talk about, I kind of want to make a legendary Queenbreaker out of the Storm Chaser. I think it'd be one of the most generational weapons if it got both Controlled Burst and Precision Instrument. You have to really hit those crits to make the most out of it, or if there was some Precision Arc perk as well. Something that interacted with bolt charge, I think would be really cool. A crazy ask that I have for the Unforgiven SMG would be Onslaught and Master of Arms. I think it would be a bit crazy. For fixed odds, I would hope that they would turn it into an aggressive frame machine gun and give it something like Onslaught and Incandescent. The Lingering Dread, I hope this turns into a micro missile. Also, giving it Explosive Light. There is no Breach Loader that has Explosive Light on it, and Explosive Light isn't really that great on heavy grenade launchers, so I think it'd be really cool if you gave it to a special ammo one. Would it be too powerful? I can't really say, but I think it'd be cool. When it comes to the King's Fall weapons, I kind of hope they get a new Origin trait. I don't think I've ever really taken advantage of this Origin trait with any of these weapons, and it would be nice if I could also use this weapon and have an Origin trait that works in solo or lower team content. So I made a new Origin trait. The name of it would be called King's Hand. Landing hits grant a stack of King's Hand with special and heavy weapons granting more. Landing a final blow consumes your stacks on King's Hand and reloads your weapon equal to the amount of King Hand stacks you had. After consuming a total of 10 King's Hands, deal 5% increased damage for 10 seconds. Consuming more than 10 stacks will grant 2% more damage for every stack. The idea behind this is you're getting a buff for consuming or taking an enemy, and their power becoming yours. Sort of sword logic in a way, how you gain strength. You guys are gonna have to let me know what you guys think of this Origin trait. Additionally to the King's Fall weapon, I think Quillum's needs a bit of an update. While I don't want to turn every 360 RPM machine gun into a 600 RPM, I think it'd be pretty cool if you made a unique machine gun archetype that fired 2 shots at a time and increased RPM as you held down the trigger. By the time you reach half of your magazine, the RPM would be doubled. So a 360 RPM machine gun would become a 720 RPM if you held down the trigger and fired half of its magazine. I think it could create a unique burst damage scenario with machine guns and have some cool perk interactions with things like 4th times the charm, Focused Fury. Let me know what you guys think about that one. Or Spire of the Watcher, Builder Flight has always been one of my favorite weapons, and I hope that it gets the Rite of the Nine version back. I think that's a very strong version of the weapon, and I feel like more people should have access to that version of the weapon. But additionally, I would add Explosive Light to that weapon, so it could be paired up with Lingering Dread for some wacky combos. Additionally, I do hope that the 7 Seraph Revolver and Carbine do get an update as well, and maybe a little bit of a buff to the Rasputin Arsenal Origin trait. It'd be cool if you can create a Warmind cell that matches the element of the super you were using. I think the Root of Nightmare weapons are pretty solid, but I would really like it if the weapons look fun enough to use with each other. Harmonic Resonance is such a cool Origin trait. I fear that it never really gets taken advantage of. I definitely would love to run a loadout that uses grenade launcher, the linear fusion, trace rifle, the auto rifle, hell, all the weapons. I'd love to use a loadout that uses them all. On our way to Ghosts of the Deep, again, I think all these weapons should just be transformed into the Red of the Nine version, but also, let's get a little crazy here. Cold Comfort has always been the second best rocket and never the best rocket in a lot of cases, so what if we made it the best rocket at Ad Clear? How would we do that? Introducing Discord into column 4, and that's how you do it. Or we can actually make it crazy and give it explosive light in the third column. And if you want to get even crazier, you could add both these things at the same time. Adding explosive light to the third column and having other DPS perks in the fourth column would allow us to have the highest burst damage for rockets. I think it'd be a very unique way to give it that bleeding edge against Hezen's Vengeance, which I assume isn't going to get changed heavily. It's already the best rocket in the game. I don't know what you could give it to make it better besides a damage perk in the left column. And if that's the case, you just made that rocket even better than every other rocket when it already was. I think the game is better when there's multiple options for different scenarios rather than just having the end-all be-all option, which is why I want to make Cold Comforts that rockets rather than Hezen's Vengeance. Additionally, I think no survivors should have Chaos reshaped on it. What I really want this SMG to be is the always available Eartide Apex, but probably a little bit better, especially given its origin trait. You'd be able to have double the mag size, which I think is pretty cool. Adding some other perks on it like Cascade Point, Onslaught's Target Lock would also be very nice. And again, make it like the Red of the Nine version. Onto the Crota's End weapon, which I'm most excited for. I'd like to see Horde of Crota get Magnificent Howl. I don't know where you'd put it, but just put it on the weapon. I'd like to see how that behaves. Up next, I would love to see Onslaught on Abyss Defiance, something like Onslaught Heal Clip, or even Onslaught Incandescent would be really cool, especially with that origin trait. It would be a very nice auto rifle. Oversoul Edict should get jolting feedback on it. I think it would help out a lot in its clear speed. Song of Eerie Utes, I wouldn't really change much about this machine gun, but if it had Onslaught in the third column, it would definitely help out a lot. Dungeon I'm hoping gets the most love out of them all would be Warlords Ruin. I don't think I used a single one of these weapons besides Indebted Kindness, and I don't know what they would do to Indebted Kindness to really make it oomph when we live in a world with rocket pulses. Hopefully there is something there, but I'm also not going to hold my breath. What would be cool is if we got to see some of those arm weak bow mods be made into actual weapon perks. I think that'd be very nice. Maybe Vengeful Whisper would be the bow to receive that. Also, caster frame swords need some sort of unique damage perk that only caster frames get. I hate when I see a caster frame come out and it just has like chain reaction on it. I don't know anyone that uses a caster in that way. Who knows, maybe you guys in the comments can tell me you use it in that way. But it'd also be really nice if I could use my caster in a damage scenario that isn't Ill Omen with On Guard. But that's a whole nother conversation. Additionally, that Strand Sniper from this dungeon, what the hell were they doing when they made this thing? It's a 140 RPM sniper, yet it's undesirable. That is honestly quite rare, especially given when we have Praetive's Revenge, Supremacy, Conspiracy Honed, all being fantastic DPS weapons that are only outshined by something like Mint Retrograde, which is just easier to use. These weapons have great total damage. The fact that this sniper just isn't remotely close to any of those, highly disappointing to me. For the final Shape era dungeons and raids, I don't think many changes need to come to these weapons. Maybe a few modern perks coming to them would be nice. So I think I'm just going to dive into what I want from raid catalysts. And we're going to go all the way back to the top with Last Wish, aka 1,000 Voices. Now, I know what you're thinking. Give it particle deconstruction. I'm with you. But also give it controlled burst. Give it both those things. Make this the weapon where you want to do fusion rifle or linear fusion rifle DPS. Have a guy on your team using this to weaken the boss to linear fusion rifles by 40% damage. That's all linear fusion rifles. That's Sleeper Simulant. That's Euphony. That's Queen Breakers. That's Storm Chaser. That's Cataclysmic. That's all of them. All of them get the buff from this fusion. And hey, special fusion rifles. those as well. Let's get something crazy up in here. That's one thing I'd love to see. Up next, well, it's technically not a raid weapon. It is technically our first dungeon exotic, that being the Wish Ender bow. I've always loved the idea of like a rain of arrows perk, where like you get a few kills with it, and then you have an alternate fire shots, and when you hit that shot on a target, that just a rain of arrows comes hitting that target, dealing damage over a period of time. I've always wanted that for a bow. I think Wish Ender is the perfect bow for it. That's personally what I would want. Up next, we have Divinity from Garden of Salvation. I would love it if that got Detonator Beam in addition to what it already does. I know a lot of people say 4th times the charm or triple tap, and while those things are cool, I think it's kind of boring in a way. The biggest issue when you're the div player is that you don't really do any damage. So I would love things that would improve how the weapon feels. Maybe give it target lock. Give it target lock and give it Detonator Beam. So you can be a div user wherever, not only in raids, and it feels strong to use. I bet there's some guy out there that would love to use his div all the time. And you know what? Let's give that guy something. I hope you enjoy, guy. Up next, we have Pit of Heresy, and if you guys don't remember, that's where Xenophage comes from. I don't really know what I would want to give Xenophage. It'd be funny if its catalyst was just the ability to crit, but I believe Bungie doesn't want it to crit whatsoever, so I respect that. It would be cool if it got a deeper ammo reserve and maybe something like Cascade Point. Some cool way to make a burst option. That'd be really cool. I'd love to dump an SMG into an enemy, trigger some crits, and then swap over to a fully automatic Xenophage into an enemy. I think that could be pretty funny. I don't know, you guys are gonna have to let me know your guys' thoughts on that. Eyes of Tomorrow has always been an interesting one because it already really feels like it has a catalyst with how it works right now. It generates its own ammo if you kill 4 or more enemies. It increases its volley damage by 50% if you do so. So how do you make something that's already good even better? I think what you could do is give it some sort of interaction that you do while you're in the air. Maybe it locks on faster or keeps you suspended in the air while ADSing. I think that would be pretty sweet. Maybe you could add some Scorch interaction with it. I don't know. You guys are gonna have to let me know what you think about that. For Collective Obligation, I often do see people give the suggestion that it should become the multi-tool of elemental weapons, that it just adapts to your super. And while I do think that's a cool idea, I think that takes away from its ideology of what a collective obligation is. Also, I just think it's a little bit too similar to Tesselation, the idea of that catalyst, of it adapting to your super. Might just be me though. Personally, what I would really like is that it sort of gets the old tractor cannon treatment, in which when you're in the Void Leech mode, I think the weaken that you apply should be a stronger weaken. I think it'd be really cool if we got the old weaken in which your void abilities and any void damage in general does 50% more damage to the target in the form of Collective Obligation through its exotic catalyst. I think it'd be a lot harder to work for, but also very rewarding for the user of the weapon. I don't know, that might be a little too strong nowadays, but hell, I would really love if I were to shoot my tether, throw my Nova Bomb, or my Void Axes at an enemy, and they're 50% stronger against that enemy because I'm using Collective Obligation. That might be a little too much, but again, you guys are gonna have to let me know what you think. Conditional Finality doesn't have a catalyst yet, and I often see people ask for the ability for it to a strand arc and void bullets as well. And while that is pretty cool, I think it is a bit lazy for the weapon. I'm sorry. I think the duality between it being a stasis and a solar weapon should be its identity, and I think it'd be cool if it had a similar effect to what I was talking to with Conditional Finality, but instead, when you hit a target with the stasis shot, it weakens them to solar damage for a little bit, and when you hit them with the solar shot, it weakens them to stasis damage. So it empowers the weapon itself, which each shot, but additionally, it would empower the rest of your arsenal, assuming you're using stasis and solar things. I also would want it to not break PvP, so I don't want to give it the ability to auto-reload itself on hit more so than it already can. So I think having a conditional perk for the Conditional Finality would be really nice. The final raid or dungeon weapon that doesn't have a catalyst yet is Euphony. I don't straight up want to give it to the treatment of Queenbreakers. I think it's a very unique weapon that has a playstyle that works with Warlocks. I think it'd be nice if Euphony got a buff to the threadwings it creates, or some auto-loading perk. I think it'd be very nice. Euphony is one of the more unique damage options in the game, and I think it should be as such. With all that out of the way, those are what I'm looking forward to in the June update in terms of the weapons. I can't really make a prediction on how the armor sets are going to look. There's over 19 different pieces of content that they are potentially touching, so that's definitely going to be a wait and see situation. I'm uploading this on a Thursday, so I hope the tweet doesn't come out in a few hours that says everything that I said is not happening, but if it does, so be it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Tell me what you guys are looking forward to. I mainly spoke from a PvE player's perspective. If you play PvP, what are you looking forward to? But until then, see you guys next time. Bye now.